Hey YouTube, Mathboy Comics here, coming from the West Coast here in sunny Southern California. This is my first video. I'm going to probably try to do 2 to 3 of these every month, and wanted to give my take on being a beginning collector and also a speculator, with obviously my main sources being whatever goes on in the internet. Let's see here, been collecting only for probably the last 12 months. Follow a lot of you guys out on YouTube, and gather a lot of good information from the community. Want to go ahead and show a couple of the books, mostly the series that I'm reading, a couple of artists that I've really started to follow. I also do CGC, and I also wanted to take a part of this video to also go through, pick out a book, and kind of go through why I've understood certain grades coming from CGC. One thing that I've seen a lot is you have some videos saying that they were expecting to get a certain grade and it came back lower or higher, and it's really more of the person kind of throwing their hands up in the air. But I think that there is a science to it, and it's really more of a matter of being able to figure out if you've really looked through the entire book, not just the front cover, obviously the back cover, and also at times the interior pages, because you may randomly miss like some sort of like dog ear that happened to a book or whatever the case may be. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's see here. I pretty much read only Marvel and some Image books. The 3 Image books, none of which are going to be shown today, is The Walking Dead, The Fix, and also Snot Girl. I haven't started Snot Girl, but it just looks interesting enough that I'm going to give it a couple of story arcs. So first series that I have here is Black Panther, the 2016 series. We've got number 1, number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And really, I mean, anyone can pretty much look at the cover art from on the internet. It's really more of what I want to do is just offer my take on what I've read so far. I find it interesting. I think I'm definitely invested in the Black Panther character, more based on his involvement with the Illuminati, and the things that occurred for Time Runs Out, and also Secret Wars. They have done takes of it with Christopher Priest, and I forget the other author that also wrote for him. And I figured that this might be my way of jumping in and being able to catch up on this character at some start. Obviously the things I found that it's a little hard to follow. It's a bit of a slow burn so far, but I'm definitely going to be giving it a chance, at least probably like 3, 4, 5 story arcs, unless it really disappoints me. Right now, for me personally, I think it's giving me probably about a solid B, but like I said, I'm definitely going to give it a long chance going through this. It's interesting that it's going to definitely take several books for them to be able to show all the major players and what the state of Wakanda is at this point. So I'll let you know how that's going. Next up, we have Nick Spencer's Captain America, the Hail Hydra, with all of the obvious controversy that got attached to that. We've got number 1, number 2, number 3 so far is out. I wanted to give Captain America a try. I found this interesting. This is the series that came out of the results of the Avengers standoff series, with Kobik as the fragments of the sentient fragments of the cosmic cube, essentially turning old Steve Rogers into the young Steve Rogers again. And I think that was in Captain America Sam Wilson number 7. And it's interesting at this point. It's, you know, I think there's so much background noise that's happening, you know, with speculation of, is he a double agent? Is he a triple agent? You know, what's going on here? I think because it's Nick Spencer, and because I think that there needs to be a really good in-depth story to be told with a lot of moving parts, you know, under the surface, that this may take, you know, some time to basically figure out, you know, who Captain America serves at this point. I'm sure that at the end of the day, it comes back to the idea that they're not going to necessarily just find an easy way out, but I think it's definitely going to be something that they're going back to the roots of Captain America and Red Skull, and, you know, just them effectively kind of playing a like a manner of chess, so that you know, one can continue to try to fool the other one at this point, you know, namely Captain America fooling the Red Skull. But, you know, I have yet to figure out how this is going to play out, and I'm excited to see what's going to go on. So on to the third series that I have on my pull list, and this is Guardians of the Galaxy, written by Brian Michael Bendis. Because it was Brian Michael Bendis, I decided to give it a run, and here's number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, and let's see, they started up a new story arc. Now I'm going to take a pause here at this point. After 5, I was pretty much okay with it. You know, the only background I honestly had with respect to Guardians at this point was just the movie, and the fact that Ben Grimm is in this team now, and also Kitty Pryde was in this team. Those things definitely threw me off, but strangely enough, it actually kind of piqued an interest with me to try to find out more about Kitty Pryde, even to the point that I'm actually putting on my wish list or my watch list X-Men 129, which is her first appearance. So you know, so I'm going to see how this turns out. I believe it was the second story arc here, beginning with issue number 6, where they've gone into some slave planet, and they essentially had to save an entire population of species that were held prisoner or like enslaved effectively, and you know, that was interesting. I think that that's kind of where I was not you know, sure if I was going to stick to it or not. And, you know, I mean, what ended up happening is, as the tie-in for Civil War II, Carol Danvers is asking the help for the Guardians to come back to Earth and help with what's going on. So they've kind of probably roped me into that. I'm most likely going to stick to this book only through the end of Civil War II, and then at that point, you know, I'm probably going to take it off my pull list. Let's see here. Now, I'm only going to stick to 3 series per video, and what I'd like to do is also, you know, just highlight some art that I've seen. You know, I think that's pretty awesome on just normal covers that you don't necessarily have to go chase, like, you know, every single variant out there. And the first one that a lot of people have already seen that there's a lot of traction on is the Alex Ross regular cover for Amazing Spider-Man 15 with Mary Jane Watson in the Iron Spider suit. Pretty awesome. You know, I've heard a lot of people say they don't understand how this was not the variant and how the J. Scott Campbell was the variant. I mean, the only real answer out there is the fact that Alex Ross has been doing the cover art for this particular title from the jump. He was the cover artist for issue number 1, and he continues to be through issue 16. And this is, I love this. This cover is pretty awesome, and it's definitely got me excited for reading the Dead No More miniseries that's going to be a part of Amazing Spider-Man. I assume it's probably going to be from 17 through possibly 20 or 22. There have been all sorts of speculation before with who was coming back from the dead. I think without having to like break comic book golden rules and golden laws, it made the most sense that Doc Ock was coming back, and it sounds like he is at this point. That his mind was trapped in that robot, and he's finally going to be able to get his body back, without being too much of a spoiler with respect to issue number 16. They've figured out a way to get his body back up and running. I started off Amazing Spider-Man through issue number 1. I basically pulled the plug on after issue number 5 or 6, and then issue 15, simply for the art and also the speculation, got me back in. And 16, the art was great. Frankly, almost all the covers by Alex Ross for this particular title are amazing. But I'm definitely going to give this a go through the Dead No More title. And so that's going to kind of be our segue for artists. And the next artist I have, see, this is number 1 out of 4. The next one you've probably seen prices going all over the place on eBay is, I don't want to mispronounce her name too badly. I want to say it's Jenny Frison. She did the variant cover for Astonishing Ant-Man. I do not read Astonishing Ant-Man, but this cover of Psylocke is pretty amazing. They also have another cover, a different artist, but it's of Jean Grey for Uncanny Inhumans number 12, where the Phoenix Force looks like it's just escaping her body in every possible direction. I don't have it with me at this point. I've seen it. I think it's pretty awesome. So, this is going to be one of those. I have a feeling that this is going to definitely have legs when it comes to people talking about the quality of the cover and just, the actual art itself as a standalone book. Now, the next book that I have is by the artist by the name of Mark Brooks. Let's see here. Here's a Spider-Gwen cover. And also, I can't for the life of me remember if that was an exclusive to any particular store. And then this is the Midtown exclusive for Black Panther. I'd say probably in the more recent books that you could see his work. You could see it on Han Solo, the miniseries for Star Wars, as well as Vader Down. That was probably through I want to say like Christmas time, or probably even after that. Great artist. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and I picked up some prints off of him of Laura Kinney, X-23, as well as Carol Danvers, and the stuff is phenomenal. So just want to show you that as well. Now, this background that you see is from an artist by the name of Livio Ramondelli, and it's here's Magneto basically just escaping the shrapnel that is a downed Sentinel. Pretty awesome. I have some other works of his, mostly Star Wars stuff, but pretty fantastic artist. Now let's see here. So the next thing I want to do is, and we're at the 14-minute mark, so I'm going to try to get through this last piece and see how this turns out. The next thing I want to do is I want to just go through a few books, because I myself have the tendency to try to collect key issues and sets. And the best way to explain that is I went through and started collecting things that were related to Carol Danvers and also Kamala Khan. So what I have here first is Captain Marvel, Marvel Superheroes featuring Captain Marvel, number 13. And I believe this is the first appearance of Carol Danvers. The next thing I have is, and I think I'm missing This title for, I know it's probably a few issues later. I want to say like issue 18 where she actually gets her powers. I can't remember how, but I have to basically look at either Comics Explained or one of those guys that did a really good in-depth explanation of it. But here I have Miss Marvel #1 Bronze Age book. Let's see here. This is Carol Danvers, first Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel. So I'm presuming based on the time that this was possibly, actually I take that, I want to say that this is what happens after Carol Danvers gets her powers, but don't quote me, that could be terribly wrong. Now for the next thing is, I definitely want to try to find more Carol Danvers stuff, particularly the Secret Invasion stuff. There's a variant cover out there with her and Marvel that looks pretty awesome. It's like connecting art, but they're both variants. They're probably books that are like in the $30 to $50 range, depending on what grade you're talking about. But as Miss Marvel vacated her, her title as, or as Carol Danvers vacated her title as Miss Marvel, she took on the Captain Marvel title in Avenging Spider-Man #9. I do have that, but it's unfortunately, or fortunately, it's off to CGC getting graded at this moment. That basically left a hole for someone to basically take on the moniker of Miss Marvel. So at that point, here in Captain Marvel, I don't recall what volume this is, but here, Captain Marvel #14, we have the first cameo appearance of Kamala Khan. Obviously, I'm missing #17. I'm still in the hunt for that. I want to try to get a really good, affordable 9.8. I actually bought this raw and, did a hard amount of research to make sure that I didn't screw up and end up with a pretty, with a flawed book. I was, more than lucky to be able to get this back from CGC as a 9.8. And so I'm definitely looking for both the first print and the second print of Captain Marvel #17. I'm honestly not trying to get a 9.8 for that blue bar second print. I'd say anything around like between 6.5 and 8.5, I'd be perfectly fine. I don't necessarily need to have, for some of those just ridiculously hard ones to find after, some years have gone by. I'm basically not going to break the bank to try to find it, or to pay for it for that matter. So with Captain Marvel 17 missing, let's see here, the next one is the first full appearance of Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel. And let's see here, it's a 9.6. I mean, I got this raw off of eBay. There's definitely a little bit of abrasion on the corners for both the lower left and lower right hand, lower left hand and upper left hand corners. I'm still actually in the hunt to find something that I think is a 9.8, but haven't found anything yet. And, there seems to be this really weird thing where some comic book stores know it's a 9.8 raw, and next thing you know, instead of charging $14, $15 for it, they're charging something more like $45 for it. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable doing that, especially since I'm still sitting on a 9.6, near mint plus. And lastly, in this Miss Marvel run, I have Miss Marvel in her own title, and Kamala Khan becomes a new Miss Marvel, and this was a 9.8. Bought this raw too. Really scary to try to do this stuff on eBay because you're, asking for, you're asking for additional pictures if at all possible, and hopefully they're able to oblige you, get the pictures that, that you're looking for, particularly like spine ticks. Even a single spine tick can drop it down to a 9.4. Like an overly abraded corner that isn't just a slight rub. Looking for any type of bend that you're not expecting. Those types of things can drop that immediately to like a 9.2. Even a 9.0 or even a blunted corner can get you down to a 8.5. So lastly, I'm over here approaching the 20-minute mark. I'm going to take these away. And the last thing I'm going to do is talk a bit about what my expectations are for when I send books off to CGC. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this book here. It's my Ultimate Fallout #4, first appearance of Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man, when this is in the 1610 universe, I believe. It follows the death of Peter Parker in that particular universe, and Miles Morales, what's already happened to him with regards to being bitten by the spider has already taken place, and he's decided to go out and try to pick up where Peter Parker had left off. Now, when I got this book off of eBay, I was incredibly short-sighted in only inspecting the front of this book. By the looks of the front of this book, not to exaggerate, this to me is a slam dunk 9.8. I even went so far as to examine how sharp the corners were of this book. Now, in parentheses, from the front, and I was almost inclined to think that I could possibly get a 9.9. Sent this off, didn't really think much about it, threw it in some Mylar, sent it off to CGC. Lo and behold, I get it back about 3.5 months later with a 9.4, and I'm shocked. I look at the front of the book and nothing has changed, and it obviously gives me that terrible worry, and I look in the back, and lo and behold, the things that I should have looked for had always been there, and never, honestly, just never took the time to notice them. So there's actually 4 things here that I see. So up here in the corner, you can see the white. So that fuzz, that's, what would be considered, a minor abraded corner. You've got a little bit of the color taken away here near the staple. There's nothing wrong with the staple per se. It's really more that the color has kind of just been rubbed off the book at that point. So that's another ding. The third ding, I'm not sure if this is really a ding down here. I see a little bit of white, and so the jury's still out with respect to that. And lastly, I see 2 little like hairline, like white things here. I'm not sure. Oops. I'm not sure. Oh, now you know what? Haha. Those things aren't there. So really, for that matter, it's really these 3 things that are all here on the right side of the book near the spine that drop this thing down to a 9.4. The one thing that a lot of videos don't mention anything about, like, how's a 9.8 a 9.8, and, how's a 9.6, what it is, and so on and so forth. And, I've bought the Overstreet guide. I've looked at the charts for the maximum allowable defects, and a 9.8 cannot have more than a 9.8 cannot have more than 2 flaws. A 9.6 cannot have more than 3 flaws. A 9.4, strangely enough, if I'm not mistaken, I think cannot have 3 flaws either. But the reason why the 6 and the 4 have the same maximum number of flaws is that the 4 gives, I guess, a worse quality of flaw. So it's still considered near mint, but you could have something as horrible as like a 1/32 inch spine tick with color break. You can have this corner how it is right there. If that corner was probably not as bad, I would assume then that I'd be looking at a 9.6 versus this 9.4. I know, considering that this particular issue comes from a polybag, and I really don't know. This is not something, I guess you can find it like in the back issue bins. I actually see one at one of my local stores, and they're selling it for like $24.99. But the problem is that, I have no idea what to expect with regards to like spine ticks and the corners at this point. So, you know, if you do see things like a 9.8 or a 9.6 on eBay and you wonder why they're asking $250 to $300, I mean, it's pretty difficult to try to protect a polybagged book that doesn't have a backing back from 2011, you know, unless it was immediately thrown into like, you know, a bag and a board from that point. So, so this will wrap it up. I am at the 25-minute mark. Seems like a really long time. I'm going to try to definitely cut this down to more like something in the 15-minute world. So I'm going to take some notes as to how to shorten this down. But I hope you all enjoyed this. Thumbs up, a like, all that fun stuff. And like I said, I'll try to put out 2 to 3 videos every month and see what's going on from there. Thanks a lot.